Okay, I think we can start now. Hi, everyone. Uh, welcome to the second session of today's conference organized by KAPNA. And the second session is going to be about mastering grant applications and strategies from the successful recipients. My name is Jens Spektaray, and I'll be moderating today's session. I'm currently a postdoctoral researcher at Johns Hopkins University in the United States, doing research in condensed matter physics. And perhaps if your job is somewhat related to doing science, you know that one of the key aspects of doing successful science is securing grants. So that's why we thought that holding a session about mastering these grant applications would be a big interest for for our audience, both in Kazakhstan and abroad. And today, our speaker is Yulia Safarova, who is a senior research scientist at National Laboratory Astana. Yulia got her PhD in biomedical engineering from Nazarbayev University, and she has more than 13 years of research experience in the field of stem cell research and biomedical engineering. And most importantly, she has been a principal investigator on numerous research grants, which have been funded by various funding agencies in Kazakhstan. Yulia, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello everyone. Thank you for kind introduction. I'm happy to join this great initiative to support the young researchers overseas who's going to come back and apply for new grants.
Thank you so much. I'll briefly go through the logistics of today's session. So this is going to be a panel session, but since we have just one speaker, it's going to be more like a interview type of a session. I'll be moderating the session and asking Yulia questions, and you are welcome to put your questions in the comment section in the chat. And we will be asking them either during the session or at the end of the session, where we'll be answering the Q&A from the audience. And yeah, I think we can proceed to the main part of the conference. So I think our audience is a bit diverse in a sense that some people are working in Kazakhstan and some people are doing their PhDs or continuing research abroad. So we want to start this session by a little bit a type of a general question. So that will be interesting for everyone. So we'll start with a question. Could you please give us a brief overview of types of research grants available in Kazakhstan and what are the key funding agencies?
Okay, so the key funding agencies are governmental. It's Ministry of Science and Higher Education. Well, there is also Ministry of Healthcare, who occasionally have some opportunities to acquire the program funding for really big research projects. Well, it's Science Fund, and all of this is monitored by National Center for Scientific and Technical Evaluation. As a researcher, we have fundamental and applied research projects. So this all goes under the Ministry of Science and Higher Education grants. Who is supplying those grants. Yes, so the key main agencies is Ministry of Science and Higher Education and Science Fund. Well, I would like to mention that Science Fund is often funding the commercialization projects, like the projects that are on the stage where you want to make a startup or start to produce some of the products or services, something like this. And Ministry, it's mainly for fundamental and applied, but applied before the commercialization process. That's the separation. So first you have your idea, you research it. For example, I'm from biomedical field, and first of all, we do proof of concept study. Then we have our preclinical data. We can do some pilot clinical studies in terms of those grants from Ministry of Science and Higher Education. But when we go to industry, we should apply for another type of grant that's for commercialization. And this usually goes from Science Fund. There are several competition that ministry has. Well, there is, I think I'm jumping to next question, but to be clear, so we have three types of grants. One is for postdocs who is in their late thesis defense stage. And when you know that you're going to be defending in 1 year, they have this grants called Jaz Halim, and those are for PhDs. PhDs to be. Then we have the competition for young scientists, and those grants are for early career researchers. So the requirements are not so strict and the obligations are not so strict, but the funding also is somehow less. And then there is a grants for regular researchers. And well, there is a full requirements, there is full obligations, and was not much, but 30% more funding.
Yeah, thanks for very detailed information. I think it was useful for many people who had like very little idea about how these things work. So you, I think, already mentioned about like fundamental science versus something more applied, which can be,
Yes.
commercialized. So this brings me to a next question. So how's this funding situation different for someone doing like very fundamental science, let's say astrophysics or pure math, versus someone who's doing more applied stuff, like maybe drug discoveries, maybe AI, maybe some engineering projects where people work on like making better batteries. Like, yeah, how those two things differ
So the main
from
difference between fundamental and applied in terms of grant application is the obligations that you need to fulfill. For fundamental studies, you have to publish more papers. And for applied, you can publish less, but you can compensate through patents and acts of implementation. So there's something, the papers that state that your technique has been implemented in practice. For example, for medical procedures, well, you can have this act as one of your outputs. One paper and act of implementation, so that your technology is being used somewhere in a hospital, or well, that also works for educational studies, that well, the technique that you develop or the approach that you develop will be used in education in this university, and you have this act of implementation, so you can cover like several papers that will go on the fundamental research. And also there is a technology readiness level. That's a new metric that has been implemented lately, and it's in short TRL level. So when you're applying, you're stating which TRL level you are at. For example, if you're starting just researching the mechanism, you need to prove the concept. You will have your TRL at 0, and then you at the output you will have your data confirmed and published, and that will be your technology readiness level 1. If you have your technology, for example, this is a continuous grant, you've already stated in the previous grants, for example, that this mechanism is working, but you need to do more studies on it, then you have your technology readiness level up, for example, from 3 to, and you through this course of the project, it's going to be 5. Well, those TRL levels, they have high impact on assessing the grants. And the higher you have your technology readiness level, well, the better marks you will get in applied grant application. And besides, another important issue for applied science, you need to have co-funding. That's usually around 5% from your grant, that other company which is interested in your technology will subsidize to a project, and you need to have this document that this company is ready to help you out with this 5% out of the whole sum of the project, and you submit it to the application center. Does it sound clear?
Yeah, it does, definitely. There was a good question in the chat about social science. I know it's not area of expertise, neither of me or nor yours, but can you comment on like abundance of grant opportunities for social sciences versus basically STEM? Like, is it less? Is it pretty much equal, or? How's the situation?
Well, there are scientific directions that each year are elaborated by, well, now it's National Academy of Science who elaborate the further directions which they're gonna call out during the grant application. And if this falls under those priority science direction, then you will have funding. But pretty much, I'm not sure how they do like elaborate inside this science direction, like what are some goes to different science directions. For example, I usually apply for natural sciences or medicine, life sciences. That's not clear, but I think social sciences, everyone gets some funding to support the grant. Probably I can show you or say like but there were social sciences. They do have this in each competition, different directions that they announce. And for example, that's, well, for these grants of young scientists, now there is call for young scientist grants. They have also 6 priority science direction. So that's ecology, energy, transport, IT, intellectual potential
Did you want to share
of the
something on the
country. So,
screen?
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I probably, yes. Yes, let's share this.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah, better to understand how it all works. But the science direction, they differ from competition to competition. Every competition has its own competition documents, and pretty much all major points are outlined in there. I'm sharing the screen, and yes, I send the request.
Yep. Here you go.
And here we go, for example. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So this is how the competition documents look. I'm sorry, this is in Russian, but I can translate. So we have those priority and specialized research directions. And for this call, that's ecology, environmental, as usual. Well, it's on top energy. And I think, so here is IT and cosmic technologies, and this is intellectual potential. So you can see that there are a lot of directions inside of fundamental and applied research grants in social sciences. So they have economics, they have like sociology. Well, yes, sociology is not abandoned, I would say. Here we go to the science of life sciences.
Yeah, that's very cool.
6, yeah. So pretty much there is also 6 or 7 of them, and inside you need to figure out the particular research, like specialized research direction.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this. This actually brings me like to the next question, like very related. So for a young scientist who, let's say, haven't applied for those grants by themselves yet, how can they identify the right grants to apply? And are there like centralized platforms where you can or data sets for this purpose? You were showing some document, but if you could just elaborate.
Yeah, I can share it now.
Yeah.
So you can see it. So there is a platform, and it's pretty much all electronic nowadays, and it's really a win situation because 10 years ago that was all in paperwork, and there was a lot of mess up during the paper stuff and signatures and stuff like this. So now it's all in electronic, and I strongly urge you to register on this site, and I'm going to explain why. So this is a website of National Center of Science and Technology Evaluation. When you get inside, you have your profile page where you will need to attach your identity, your PhD diplomas. This is official governmental website, so it's all secure. And over there, you can mention your research directions qualification. So, for example, you can be an expert in biomedical engineering field. And so why you need to register in here before you apply your grants? You can be an expert. Usually, this center does not exploit the experts who was not the PI before. But now we have really like a shortage of experts, and this the time for experting the projects enlarged a lot. So now they are trying to use the resources of all researchers, whoever like who've been PI or have not been PI. You also put your H-index over there and all your publications. So well, once you have your H-index above 3 or 5, you can be an expert and they can call you and say, well, we have some projects and you have no affiliation with them. So no conflict of interest. Can you review those projects? And you can review their applications. This is paid moment. I mean, they're gonna pay you for this expertise, but the payment is not a lot. Well, it is actually ridiculously low for such amount of work, but it gives you the expertise. Well, it gives you experience how other people do write grants and how you can improve your application once you're going to be applying. Well, of course, everyone who is applying like in certain competition will not be expert in other projects. That's no. But for example, if you're not applying yet and you have your free time that you can, I would say this is a donation of your free time and getting some expertise because the payment is around $15 for one grant. And the amount of work is quite a lot. You need to write the feedback on each point like on novelty, how the project is novel and stuff like this. But this will give you the feeling how you can improve your applications once you're going to be applying.
Yeah, sounds
Yes. So
very
I will send the link afterwards.
Oh yeah, that would be wonderful because we'll be following up to the audience via email, and yeah, we could include those things as well. Yeah, it's very very interesting, at least to me, that there exists such a platform where you can have actually an account and track all the competitions and apply for them. Yeah, let's now say that we've identified the grant and competition we want to apply for, and now the question is, for a young scientist again, what are the most important elements of a successful research grant? And the reverse of that, what are the main common mistakes, bad mistakes, which young scientists do during their grant applications?
Okay, so you need to first of all, that's the idea. Well, the idea is the most expensive product on the world. So if your idea is feasible, then you're gonna success. But of course, well, once you fulfill all the obligations like throughout the application. The main, I would say, is the idea and preliminary work. So you will need to show that you have some preliminary experience in this field. That shouldn't be out of nowhere. Like I've decided to do research in, for example, in laboratory animals, and you have never been done this before. This will not work. You're gonna have low scale from scores from the experts. That should be something going out of your research where you have been published. But well, that sounds more or less obvious, but sometimes we do encounter when the person does not have publication in this field and he has really high aims. And that's moves me to the next point. When young researchers often tend to overestimate their capabilities, and I've been there as well when I was setting like the really high goals, and then once you start to do your research, you understand that's not going to take you 2 months, for example. That's going to take you a year, and this is where you need the advice of your older colleagues who've been already applying. That helped a lot. And well, that's probably from also another question, but what I would like to advise to everyone who's applying the first time, try to apply with collaborator. For example, if you're just out of your PhD studies, you can do the research, like following up your PhD thesis together with your PhD supervisor. This will give you strong background, first of all, And this will also help you at the end of the project when you need to be fulfilling the obligations and like publications, for example. That's usually 2 or 3 publications in Q1. And it feels like you have 3 years when you're applying. Usually the period of grant funding is 3 years for each project. Well, in practice, we do receive the grant money a bit late due to expertise delays and stuff like this. And then you need to, you have another year and a half, because in October, you need to start submit your final reports. And your publications should be published already, well, not only accepted, but published, and everything should be done. Otherwise, you will get some sanctions, like they probably are going to find the organization from which you are applying from. So you should have a strong idea, a strong collaborator, well, preliminary studies and background. Well, of course, you need to write down the methods clearly, but that's not so important, because, well, you will have the experience, have this feeling of how the experts going to understand your research, and the language should be understandable. I also reviewing the projects and like exporting for the center, and sometimes we do research projects that has really facilitated language. I mean, it's hard to get to know what they want on a final, and this aim should be straightforward. Like, I have this, I know that I've done that and that, and we're gonna do this and this, and that's gonna lead us to this result. Well, this is the most complicated part, when you're gonna make your complicated area sound really simple.
Yeah.
So the common mistakes, probably, yes.
Those are, I think, very important tips, like keeping it simple and being not too ambitious in
yes,
I think.
Not ambitious. And well, in terms of Kazakhstan, we have our reality. Because I was also studying for some time, not studying, like doing research in US, and it's very different in terms of reagents delivery. And for biomedical engineering, like for biologists, the reagents are the like main aspect of the grant funding. And when you are waiting for your reagents for 3 months, it's a lot more different when you get your reagents overnight. So just for those who are going to come back, take in mind that the delivery time is much more longer. And if, for example, these reagents will not work, you will not do the overnight order to order another one. Well, yes, because I had this experience where I was waiting for my cell lines, for example, for 6 months. And then I went to US and I had my really, really sophisticated reagent overnight. Like, I just ordered it, and next morning I came into the lab and they say, well, it's here. And this is an obstacle that Kazakhstani researchers for now will like step on every time. But the reality is reality.
Now that
handle this.
yeah, now that you've touched the topic of our Kazakhstani citizens who are trained abroad and coming back to Kazakhstan, I have like a follow-up question on that. So, like, let's say you got your PhD somewhere else, not in Kazakhstan. You were trained in English, and now you come back to Kazakhstan. You are hired as a faculty or as a research scientist somewhere, and you want to write a grant proposal. But the question is, although the person might be like fluent in all 3 languages, Kazakh, Russian, and English, writing grants in Kazakh or Russian might be complicated if you are not trained scientifically in that language. So my question is, first thing, do you have to have, like, when applying for those grants, do you have to have everything written in Russian or Kazakh? And if so, how people who are trained in English, for instance, handle this usually?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. I got my bachelor from New Zealand, and yes, once I came back, I had struggled to translate every single like biomedical term in Russian, and it sounded just awful. So For now, for application, we need to have you need to have your application in 2 languages, and English is the must because the projects are going to be reviewed by international experts first, and then you need to have either in Russian or in Kazakh because you're going to have the local expertise as well. So the score for the application is forming throughout this international evaluation. It's usually 2 experts from overseas and 1 expert who is local. So you will need to have it either in Russian or in Kazakh. But nowadays, Google Translate do a lot of work, and also you can have your colleagues who have more language feeling, for example, for Russian or for Kazakh, who can correct it and make it sound understandable. But actually, I can see, like, for example, as an expert, I can see whether the project was written originally in Russian and then translated to English, or it was originally written in English and then translated to Russian. And that's not a problem for experts because what I would recommend is to write in English first and then translate to Russian, because your international expertise comprise more percentage score from overall scoring. So you need to, and there are 2 of them, you need to show to international researchers that your research is valuable and understandable. So that's my advice.
That's a very, I think, important insight. Yeah, thanks for sharing that information with us. Now, let's move on to a more technical part of grant writing. And the question is about budgeting plan. So how detailed should the budgeting be in the grant proposals?
Well, yes, that's technical stuff, and usually it's controlled by the organization from which young scientist is applying. And that's how we can connect to affiliation. So a young researcher should have affiliation with some kind of research institute or faculty to apply to, because there is no option for a researcher to apply just as a physical person. It should be some kind of organization that can show the material and technical base. They have the lab, for example. I'm not sure about social sciences though, but for our direction, you need to have the running lab, I mean the full facility where you're going to be performing the research. And under this affiliation, under this organization, they have their own rules. And usually the people from economic department, they're going to help you out with tables. And actually in the system, in this National Center for Scientific Evaluation System, they have already calculatable table. So you just insert for example, for the salary, you have your PI, junior researcher, and you put the salary and it will calculate it all for you. You also have the table for consumables. So that's common, consumables, reagents. You can also have services from some kind of another organization, but you should note that usually, for example, you have cooperation with university overseas, and you would like to have the collaboration project, but you cannot pay them more than 20% of the yearly budget. So there are those moments are written in competition documentation, but it stays pretty same throughout all the applications. It's around 20% that you can pay to your collaborator. And then you can also put your business trip, and that should be done in advance. If you will not put your conference visit from the beginning, you will have some struggle to insert this point further. You will have to write several notes and explanatory notes, like why you are adding this conference. And from the beginning, just put usually it's the 3rd year where we put the conference, because you have enough results to share. So during the 3rd year of the project, you go, for example, to the conference. And also the APC charge, article processing charges, you also put in the services like from outside some third parties. I think it's called something like this.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
there is also going to
yeah.
be some percentage that you will pay to administration.
Yes.
Well, that's a common, common sense. Every grant, even international grants, they have those so-called grant fee. We call it different here, but you will have some percentage going to the administrative department who is managing all this procurement and budget and stuff.
Yeah, it's very nice to know that you have to put those things in advance into the budgeting, like going to conferences, because
Well,
from my experience, it's sometimes unpredictable if you would go to the certain conference or not. But okay,
well,
it's
about
good.
unpredictable, it's better to have your conference in there and then just move these funds to another expenses than not to have it. So you just put in in advance, and then if you're not going anywhere, you just spend them on reagents. And also you can have some equipment procurement from the grant, and those equipment also should be noted first. So they actually, if you have enough justification to purchase this equipment, you will have extra 10 or 15 millions for this equipment above your grant. But the justification should be signed and should be really strong.
I see. So now let's say we've applied for the grant, did all the budgeting, we've received the grant, and now the question I want to ask is, once grant is awarded, what are the key responsibilities of a researcher to ensure that to ensure compliance and successful project execution? I'm talking about except for scientific part where you actually need to do research. What are the things you're accountable for? I guess you have to submit some sort of reports, etc. So if you
Yes.
could elaborate on that, that would be wonderful.
Mhm. Yes. So if you have your project for 3 years, it's usually for 3 years, you need to submit acts of fulfilled services. This is the documentation that research office will give you from your organization every half a year. And this is just bureaucratic moment that they need to sign and submit. But at the end of each year, you also will need to submit intermittent, I think it's called information, like what you have done for this year. For example, for the first year, you have, and also the calendar plan. Well, the calendar plan is really important document. And what I would advise is to carefully monitor what you put in your calendar plan, because calendar plan is official document under which you will be asked afterwards, after you have ended your grant. So you have the calendar plan for 3 years, and each year you are making the short report for what have been done in terms of calendar plan. And by the end of the third year, you have your full big report, which is in a doc file full of pictures, everything. They have the format that you need to follow, and that will be outlining and showing everything that you have done for 3 years. Well, what I would say, the calendar plan is really important, and sometimes people just put unnecessary information. For example, we will do this and that, and maybe this. Never do this. Never, no, maybe, nothing. Just what you actually think you will do. And because you will be asked for this, what you put in your calendar plan. And usually it's during the third year, what we usually put, the publication of the results. You can publish them throughout the course of the project, but for publication in calendar plan, you put, it's the last point, like for the last half a year, where you have the publication of your results. And here where comes the obligations. So you will need to publish, depending on your research direction and type of research, several papers. It's usually international papers, Q1, Q2, and the number of papers are written like specific for each direction. Then you might also have one Kazakhstani journal. Well, that's to promote the science in Kazakhstan and scientific publication in Kazakh. language and in Russian language and in Kazakhstan at all. And if you have your patents all graduated, for example, master students or PhD students throughout your project, you also put it over there. But the obligations are the publication of papers via researchers. So whatever we publish, all that we have, and how we're gonna share our knowledge and say that this is important.
Now I want to come to this very, I think, important question in the world of science. So, what if you put your genuine effort into research, but your results turn to be negative or like not so significant? So, is publishing like a requirement for the completion of that grant, or is it just some sort of a metrics on which you'd be then like judged on, like let's say when you will be applying to those grants in future, like yeah, basically.
This is requirement. This is strict requirement. And if we will not publish, the organization will gonna be fined. Like each day after the November 1st, well, I just encountered it like through all our grants each day after 1st of November, like 1st of November last year is usually when you have your calendar plan finished. You will be fined, the organization will be fined and charged for not publishing. So this is strict, that should be taken strictly. Well, it happens that you have negative results, and for researchers, as a researcher, you should have plan B. That's a mitigation plan, right? Risk mitigation plan. This is also one of the points that you should include in your application. For example, you have the strong theory, you have your preliminary results, and then results turned out to be something like not significant, right? You need to have this plan B. What if I did not get this equipment? What if my results will not show like this difference? What if this will not work? You should have this plan B. And what I would advise is to publish at least review paper on the topic of your grant. That will secure you, for example, and what I do recommend is to publish during the first year. You publish your paper, well, and then you do your research as well. If you have great results, well, that's great, you're going to publish them as well. If you have some kind of not good results, you're going to find out the way how to publish what you have. Well, there are still some papers that do publish negative results, and actually there are no negative results in science, right? The results are results, but you need to secure yourself from charging, from fine.
There's a great follow-up question in the chat. Basically, it says, typically when you're publishing, sometimes the review process takes a long time. So how does this work with the timeline of these reports and etc.?
It doesn't work. Well, to be honest, it doesn't work. Make sure you publish something else to get the report.
So it has to be like it has to be like published, right? Not like under review or anything. It has to be like appear on a journal,
yes,
right?
Just a second. Yes, it should be published. No matter what. Well, they will not give you an extension. Never ever they've done it in their lives. They will not give you extension. You will not get any excuses. So this point is really strict. If you can play around, for example, like calendar plan, you can send the request to change the objectives in your calendar plan, or you can add business trip, or well, you can still ask for some for example, for equipment funds, but well, not really, but not for the results. And that's what I want to warn every researcher who is applying. There are obligations, and they are not coming directly to you as a physical researcher. Well, they're gonna have some fine for the organization. And yes, that's why. Well, usually have some preliminary data for your project before you apply. because this will secure. I know this practice is in states. Like my research supervisor, he was applying for grant when he knew that he has something done already and it's working. This is like what we should think in advance. And unfortunately, of course, it would be great to have some extension and, well, it's not working. This is life, but not with a governmental funding agency.
Well, that's a little sad to hear, but at least we'll be aware of that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that
Yes.
information, which is probably not comfortable to like hear, but that's reality. Okay.
It's not comfortable to hear. Yeah, I would love if we have some extension for, especially for young researchers, especially for those who have 2 or more grants. But no, that's the reality we need to face, and we need to be ready to this. That's why I'm talking like about the review papers. This will not give you a lot of pride. I mean, among the colleagues that you publish a lot of review, like some researchers and young researchers are saying, well, then I can publish only review papers and just get the grants and make this review paper and don't do the research. No, that doesn't work this way. The researchers, we all interconnected. The research society is really small in Kazakhstan, so we know what everyone is doing. And those for your authority as a researcher, as a eligible and feasible researcher, you need to have your research papers also published. But sometimes when you are short on time, when you have like results and no plan B, results go negative and no plan B, you can do this to fulfill the obligations.
I think,
and it's not easy. I mean, to publish in Q1 too. That's why.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I think we are done with like more like detailed and technical questions, and just to wrap up, I'll ask you 2 more like general questions, and then we'll proceed to Q&A. So again, for young researchers who haven't really like necessarily defined their research area completely, so the question is, how is the landscape of research funding in Kazakhstan evolving with time? So could there be any more prominent directions into which people should like dive into research, because they're like there's a trend that government is funding this direction more than the others. Yeah, just your thoughts on this.
Well, yes, there are definitely some trends in funding. Well, they are not saying about this directly, but nowadays the science is trying to move to more commercializing products. So that's how they have a lot of funding for commercialization projects, because they want science to make impact, that science will produce the services and products that can get some income to the country. And so nowadays, this is not fundamental, but rather applied research. But me as a researcher, I understand that there are no applied research without fundamental. We still need to do what we are doing, like on a molecular level, on a biology level, on sociology level. This fundamental research creates the base from which applied science can jump on. And your first question was something about
the landscape or
landscape. Yeah, and
yeah.
the landscape improved. Well, I do see a lot of improvements. I've been here from 2011, and I still can remember how we printed out on a paper the applications, and we were bringing them directly to the science committee somewhere in Almaty, in Astana. And well, this electronic submission system had great improvement, and the rules, the competition requirements, the process of choosing an evaluation, like it became really clear. So we have the international expertise scores are given to you. The local expertise scores are also given to you with the reports. And the final stage is when the project is assessed by national science this advisory board, this process is also streaming online. So there is, I think, great evaluation, like to make the process visible and clear in terms of what they want from researchers to show, and how, like, which research direction and which research projects they're going to fund.
Okay, thanks. And the last question is, what is a single most important piece of advice you would give for someone applying for their first research grant?
Yes. So
it could be several, but just most important ones.
we talked a lot through important ones. First of all, I think is do you want really become a PI? Because principal investigator is not just about one role in a lab. As a principal investigator, you're responsible for the whole project, for the whole processes inside the project. So my piece of advice is to get the understanding that now you're going to be responsible for your research projects, and you need to fulfill it. Don't find any excuses and stuff like this. You just need to do this. And understanding of this at the beginning of your soul, I think, would say soul trip as a researcher is really important, because everyone is aiming now to become a principal investigator, but I'm more than sure there are a lot of researchers who are good executors, and there is no need for everyone to be a principal investigator, because this role, it's really responsible and sometimes overwhelming. Maybe I'm telling this as a principal investigator after 3 years. So this year I've just submitted my final reports on 2 grants. And sometimes I'm thinking maybe, well, principal investigating is not for everyone. Maybe I'm better in execution.
Yeah, that's, I think, very important piece of advice.
Mhm.
So I'll proceed to questions from chat. There have been few of them. One of them says, who and how do certain ministries decide to raise research questions for program targeted funding? They usually issue a call with some limited directions. If I have my own initiatives, who I should approach to include or for the next call?
I can see the chat too, right?
Yeah, it has to. Yeah, it has to be one of the earliest questions, like third or something.
Yeah, I can see this.
Yeah, it's a long
How do
question.
certain
Yeah.
well, for program targeted funding, what I was telling it was about the grant funding, and that's the sum for these grants are much more less than those program targeted funding. Those are the huge programs, and how certain ministries decide. Well, there are some priority research directions, and that go out of advisory boards from National Science Advisory Board. There's also the advisory board of young researchers. There is also some studies done on the future research directions from National Academy of Science. All of them have the future research directions reports, like how do they think that which science direction will be actual, like for the next 10 years, where we can navigate the money to make the most of making the most of it. So that's how they decide. And you usually call for some limited directions. Yes, they do usually issue a call for some limited directions, and this again are all decided throughout their advisory boards, and this not so publicly available. I mean, those advisory boards are not always online translated, but those are usually based on researchers boards from different not ministries, from different science directions that are applying like this direction, and this will be for great value during next 10 years. Yes, probably I'm not the one who should be answering this question. We just deal with situation. We have this program targeted funding call, and we see whether we can contribute to this. And then we apply or does not apply. Well,
Okay.
yeah, I did not apply. Well, the program targeted funding should be PI'd by really expert in the field, not young researcher, not early career researcher. Well, this is usually someone who is leading the organization or leading the several labs. Yes.
I think we had someone raising a hand for a long time now. Yeah, he didn't type it in, but I guess you can just speak up, Mohit. But, yeah, go ahead.
Hi all. Hi Yulia and the James. Thank you for this interesting, insightful webinar. The question is that I kind of feel that I'm very far away from the acquisition or something, but some of the targeted funding is like designed for some certain like direction, and that there is no competition to it. It's just an announcement that we are going to issue and that they're going to win. So let's say you have some very ambitious idea with multiple international collaboration, and then you want it to be granted as like a program targeted funding because you see that there are multiple different objectives. So is there any way like you can maybe write a letter or issue something and then speak to them like formally, officially?
Well, there are some initiatives where you can participate, and I think I can send it to you afterwards, where the research of future directions are performed. And usually, lately it was from National Academy of Science. So they make those big meetings with a lot of researchers from one field and trying to figure out, we've been trying to browse and to see, like, from our expertise, what's going to be on the market, I mean, on the research market, right? For example, 10 years ago, that was stem cell therapy. Everyone was doing stem cell therapy. And nowadays, we are moving to CRISPR-Cas, right? The genetic modification. Well, now this is the holy grail, and everyone is trying to do CRISPR-Cas. Well, CAR T therapy and those stuff. But I do understand that there are some limited directions that have been called for program targeted funding, and I don't think I can find the answer for this. Yes, but probably this direction is led by this organization, and they have a lot of expertise for this. That's why they do participate. Let me check how they call this. The advisory board has foresight session. So the National Academy of Science, they do hold foresight session where they are trying to figure out the future research directions in certain fields from the experts who, for example, have high index, who PI a lot, who have some ground for the research in this field. Yes, for program targeted, I have never participated in this, and I cannot tell you like how it is done. Probably that would be my best answer.
Okay, I'll probably ask one more question of mine. So I know you work at the research institution, not the
Yes.
not directly at the university where you also have like teaching obligations. Yeah, how so the fact that you work at the research institution, does it give you any flexibility with funding, or is it the same situation where you have to apply for grants the same way as any faculty member at university? Is there any difference, basically?
Yeah, okay. I work at National Laboratory Astana, Laboratory of Bioengineering, and we are not affiliated with teaching. So we have this affiliation with Nazarbayev University, but we do act as a separate research institution. We do not do teaching, so research is our profession. We just do research, and we have the only funding we can get is grant funding and like all other types of grants. We do solely research, and we do supervise master students and PhDs, like giving them some experience and work in projects. Well, a research institution give you some flexibility because you can buy like the reagents more easily, like in terms of research institution. Because I do know that at universities it's a really complicated complicated process, because they have for example, departments that will be one for every direction, like for the whole university. And you understand that, like, if you have your procurement department consisting of 5 people and you have the whole university trying to get some products, it's different where you have your research institution and you have your 5 people procurement team, and it's much more easy because we are more experienced in this. That's what I'm wanting to say, is because we do just research. So all the processes has really been worked out already, like for reagent supply, for example, for stem cell supply and stuff like this. So yes.
But from from like funding perspective, do you get some sort of like basic funding just because you're part of a research institute, or not? Like, just
no.
curious. You don't, I think.
Yes. Well, we are not under the governmental, and the situation with National Laboratory Astana is a bit different from all other research institutions, because most of the research institutions, they go under the governmental property. I would say it's RGP and PHV, maybe you know this abbreviation. And everyone who is going under the governmental coverage, they do have this basic funding, and it was introduced just several years ago, and it's a great initiative. It's really great to support. While you don't have grants, you have this basic fund. But for our research institution, it doesn't work this way, because we are not under the governmental coverage. We are under Nazarbayev University, and well, Nazarbayev University is struggling to give us basic funding. That's why we are working on the grants. So we do have grants, we do have job. We don't have grants. We are not so successful. Yes. Yeah, but when you're choosing, but we have great opportunities in terms of collaboration, in terms of material technical base. We have great labs. Everyone who's going to be at Nazarbayev University, welcome to National Laboratory Astana.
There is one question I left out from the chats, it turns out. Could you please cover the question of funding from foreign investors? Does it ring a bell for you? Probably during like
from foreign investors.
Foreign.
Foreign investors. If you can bring some money to the research in Kazakhstan, that's great. But the problem with foreign investors, they probably want the intellectual property belong to them. So that's why, again, as a Kazakhstani organization, we can struggle this. You need to be very careful on the agreement you are making with the foreign investors, whether the intellectual property, if you agree that this intellectual property will go to this side, then that's fine. But okay, it's going to be decided inside the organization. That's why we are like trying not to apply for foreign funding, because the intellectual property will go to their side. Like most of the NIH grants, and we checked a lot, and that's not really an option if the value of your intellectual property is very high.
So I think there's one more question. So just a reminder, if you want to go to the next session, you are free to go. But if you're still interested in the last question, we'll have just one more. I think you mentioned something about Kazakhstani citizens, like from abroad, joining as an experts for something, right? Can you just elaborate what can, like, let's say PhDs, postdocs, or research scientists who are working abroad being somewhat involved in this process? Like you mentioned it briefly, but just expand a little bit.
Yes, well, I'm pretty sure you can be expert because you still have your Kazakhstan citizenship and you can attach your ID over there. I'm not sure just whether you can apply from abroad, because you need to apply from a legal entity, and there should be the note that this organization can do the research activity. That's called like spravka аккредитация, accreditation note, right? And I've also tried to ask this question. I thought that's going to come out from the experts who've been in this field already. And what the answer that I get, that probably no, because you need to have the accreditation within the research institute from Kazakhstan.
I see. Yeah, I think that answered that this question pretty well. Well, Yulia, thank you so much for dedicating your time to be here with us today and sharing your experience. I think it was you've shared very valuable insights which would be helpful for especially young researchers who are considering applying for grants. And thanks for participants. I think I think we did
Thank you a lot.
I think we did a good
That's
job.
great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. You can write to me just if you still have some questions. I can try to answer them, and I'll probably send some links about the foresight session for future science direction. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
If you're interested, yep.
That's wonderful. And if people are interested, the next session has already started. You're free to join. And thanks everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you.